Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to Guiding Star Astrology. I'm your Astro Weather Girl, here with this week's Astro Weather Report. I'm going to show you how the stars are going to affect your life this week. Well, hello, my lovely friends in YouTube land. Welcome to this week's Astro Weather Report. I'm your Astro Weather Girl, here with this week's energies from the 23rd of July to the 30th of July. Getting to the end of July already. Can you believe it? The year is flying, and maybe that's a good thing. Keep in mind as I do this reading that this is a read for your personal edification, looking at the energies that are playing out in the sky right now and how they may be affecting you personally. It is a general read. Obviously, if I was to give you a specific read, I would need to see your chart, and I can't do that for everyone. So it's a very generalized read. But it's also not a reading discussing the big collective energies that are at play in the world right now. That's called what we call mundane astrology. It's not mundane by any stretch, but it's called mundane astrology, looking at countries, looking at diplomatic situations, geopolitical situations through the lens of astrology. That's not what this is. This is a general reading for you at a personal level, but it's not a specific reading in accordance with your chart. So take what you hear with a grain of salt, and if it applies to you, if you feel like it, the pull in your heart, like, oh yeah, that's true, that's me, then apply what I'm sharing with you and use it in your life. If it doesn't resonate, if it feels uncomfortable, it makes you feel a bit sick, then simply let it pass through you. It's obviously meant for somebody else. So what I'm speaking today is about what's going to affect you from the 23rd of July through to the 30th of July, but actually we're going to go deeper than that because we're looking at Jupiter retrograde for all signs. I'm going to break down for you in a minute what's coming up energetically in the week ahead, but for the all signs breakdown, we're looking at Jupiter retrograding, and that's going to last for quite some time until basically to the end of the year. So we're going to be in this energetic space for about 5 months with Jupiter retrograde. I'll talk more about that in just a second. Okay, so let's begin with the breakdown for the energies that are unfolding this week. Well, firstly, on the 23rd of July, we have a Mercury trine to Jupiter. So we've got Mercury up here in Leo, and we've got Jupiter down here in Aries. And of course, two fire signs, that's what's trining, that's what's the planets are trining between Leo fire sign and Aries fire sign, between these two. Hooray! Good news can arrive at last with this. And if not good news, at least we might have an optimistic mental attitude, which is what Jupiter trine to Mercury can bring. So everything that unfolds today, even the hairy stuff, even the stuff that leaves us feeling a little bit lackluster and uncomfortable, we can still see through a positive rose-colored lens as to the purpose and the meaning of those particular events in our life. That's what Jupiter does. You know, it doesn't necessarily make suddenly life so much better for us. Life on Earth is full of its difficulties for practically everybody, as we know. But when you have a strong, powerful Jupiter, you have the ability to look at what happens with a philosophical approach. Like, I can see how that's shaping me, how that's growing me, how that's bringing more wisdom into my life. And when you can see those sorts of things, it empowers you. You know, it's a glass half full attitude that helps you to enjoy life more. And of course, as within, so without, you attract more beneficial circumstances into your life because you have a more buoyant, optimistic outlook. So sort of a catch-22, what comes first, chicken or the egg, the attitude or the events of our lives, you know? They impact one another in many ways. But this energy on this day is being able to look at life with that optimistic, philosophical attitude that can see the reason behind everything that's going to be empowering. So Jupiter looks to the future. He rules the sign of Sagittarius, which of course I mentioned many times is the archetype of the centaur firing his arrow off into the distance, looking ahead. Where's he sending his arrow? So Jupiter is looking to the future while Mercury is much more detail oriented. And it actually, this healthy combination between the two makes quite a wonderful energy to do some long range planning, you know, get the details for something that you're going to do in the future. You know, where do you plan to be in 5 years? What do you plan to be doing in 10 years' time? What will your life look like? This is a time for sort of going into that space and doing some visioning for the future and coming up with the details of how you're going to get there. It's also really good if you're planning a trip away. Jupiter is travel and Mercury is to look at the details. So you'll be able to book the right car, the right motel, the right plane trip, and so on for an extensive trip away. You might like to be structuring some sort of future creative project as well, you can do with this energy, or exploring study options for you. I know here in Australia, a lot of students in year 12, they're finishing high school and they're starting to consider, well, what university course do I want to undertake? Where do I want to go to university? What should I apply to? So it's a great time on this day for getting stuck into that and exploring what the study options are. For those of us who are not looking at university, we might be looking at other types of study options. Maybe you might like to look at doing the Royal Stars Academy with me and becoming a certified astrologer. So you can practice it maybe alongside your holistic services that you're offering already, or maybe just to become a straight out and out astrologer. That's another thing you can do. But all in all, communications on this day are blessed, the 23rd of July. Contract signing is favored under this influence as well. Business dealings do tend to go well under Mercury trine to Jupiter, and we're in sort of more blithe spirits under this energy. So get out there and enjoy all that life has to offer you today. You will have the right outlook to make it worth your while. Then on the 25th of July, and I'm so pleased to see this, even though it's a square aspect, we have Jupiter squaring Venus, or Venus squaring Jupiter, depending on which way you want to look at it. On the 25th of July, I'm so pleased to see this aspect. This is actually a special day for me. And to have these two interacting like this with a square is actually something I'm glad about, because Jupiter hard aspects, like a square, like an opposition, they aren't quite as detrimental as, say, a Saturn square might be. And so what we tend to get is things can be a bit more overblown, sort of heightened expectations. And that's about the worst of it with a Jupiter hard aspect. And when you've got the two benefics in aspect to one another, even with a square, it can be beneficial. These two planets give us a lighter hard aspect than the malefics do when they square one another. And so it's actually a great transit for good times, for having fun, for celebrating, for having some parties, good energy for generosity, good energy for optimism in life. Just be careful of overdoing it and, partying too hard, or being too lazy, or food. Venus rules sweet food, like having too much cake, having, too many cocktails or something like that. Just be wary of overdoing it with this energy. Venus is pleasures, Venus is luxuries, fashion, food, and Jupiter in a hard aspect like this is simply extravagance. So make sure you know what's in your bank account before you go spending it all. Watch your waistline with the food that you eat, and all that sort of thing. But socializing, friendships, they all flourish under this beautiful energy. So relax. Enjoy this energy for the good things that it will bring and the good connections that might form in your life now, and just watch yourself when it comes to a little overindulgence. And then on the 27th, which is going to be a very powerful day, we've got Mercury squaring Mars. So here is Mercury up in Leo, and we've got Mars in Taurus, and so they're making a square aspect to one another. Now, as you can see, also we've got the building of Mars-Uranus North Node conjunction that is coming up on the 31st of July, 1st of August. So we're kind of in the zone for that already. I've got a video all about that. If you want to check it out, it's in my playlist for the Astro Weather playlist. Check that out. It went up last Saturday, and then I break that energy down a little bit more, but we will be talking about it in the weeks to come, because this is the stellar, if you want to use that word, influence for the year. This is the most significant transit of the year, without any doubt. But back to Mercury square Mars on July the 27th. Well, what do we get under this energy? Hot-headed reactions, hot-headed words, hot-headed thinking, basically. So this energy can cause people to lash out, and verbal disagreements ensue, and just getting nasty and bitter, and so it's not just it's not just feeling frustrated or anything, it's actually coming out in our communications, in our expressions. So do your best, well, my suggestion to cope with this energy is do your best to avoid situations that involve confrontation today, unless you need confrontation to happen in your life. And sometimes things have been bubbling under the surface for a long time and they've just reached the pinnacle where you can't take it anymore. And it's like you've shaken the Coke bottle up and the lid comes off the Coke bottle and poof, the words just come out. You have had a gutful. Maybe sometimes that does need to happen if you've been tolerating things for far longer than you should. But if we are trying to, live a life where there's peacefulness and maybe we're just, trying to keep things calm, and we want to let the winds of frustration blow over, maybe avoid situations, avoid confrontation that trigger this energy. Before you address anything verbally, where you might be tempted to let off steam, take some time to step back and think, because both of these planets are quick planets. Mars is the sprinter and Mercury is fairly fast as well. Like he was the messenger of the gods, and when you're a messenger in ancient Greece, you had to run for miles sometimes to deliver a message, and so you got to be quick with your messages. Didn't have any telephones or internet back in those days. So being the messenger of the gods meant that you had to be rather fast as well. So both of these planets have a very fast energy, and so we will tend to jump into our abusive words very quickly without stopping to think, without pulling on the reins to make sure, okay, is this going to hurt somebody, or is this exactly what I want to express? When I'm feeling like this kind of volatile energy, I tend to like to go and write things out in my journal before, write it out first before I take action and maybe send that email or, and then I've let the steam out in a way that doesn't hurt anybody or influence anything unduly. And then I will consider on whether I'll take action or not. Actually, most of the time I try to allow 3 days between some sort of hot-headed reaction and my taking action over that hot-headed feeling. That's kind of how I like to try and approach things. It's not always beneficial to do it like that. Sometimes we need to come back with a snappy retort. But I work on that principle because of the 3-day waiting principle that is seen throughout so many mythologies, and I talk about this when I talk about new moon energy and solstice equinox, solstice's energy as well. We're taking 3 days to redirect our thoughts and redirect what we're doing is actually a wise principle to apply. Back to Mercury Mars. My head's all over the place. Maybe that's a bit of Mercury Mars energy. Take time is really the bottom line of what I'm trying to say here. If you can manage to step back from a heated situation and think before you speak, that's going to help you enormously. If you need to let off steam, if you need to tell someone how you think, because usually you keep your lips buttoned up and don't say a word, then maybe this energy is for the best for you. But for most of us who don't want to cause sort of argy-bargy out there in our lives, drama in our lives, then it's suggested that you consciously take time out before you speak in response to something. So that's the 27th of July. And then on the 29th of July, we have Jupiter turning retrograde. Now, Jupiter's going to be retrograde from the 28th of July through to the 23rd of November, and not all retrogrades are created equal. So he's going to be retrograding down here from Aries into sort of the latter degrees of Pisces, where he'll turn direct again. Jupiter is retrograding from the 8th degree of Aries back to the 28th degree, I hope you can read my writing there, of Pisces. So he's going to only spend 1 month out of that whole retrograde period in Pisces. So 1 month out of 4, he will be in the sign of Pisces in a retrograde motion. So when we talk about this and we talk about the breakdown for all signs, we're actually going to be focusing on Jupiter's retrograde period of influence in Aries, because that's where he's going to be spending the majority of the time. So not all retrogrades are created equal, and this is the case in point. When Jupiter is retrograde, we actually find that the material aspects of life tend to feel somewhat dissatisfying for us, and we seek inner philosophical and spiritual fulfillment. We seek to feel optimistic and joyful and happy inside, rather than grasping for the material things in life that we think are going to make us happy. So in that sense, it is spiritually a wonderful transit to have. And if you're born with Jupiter retrograde in your chart, it can make you far more spiritual person because you're oriented more that way than in a materialistic way. Now, that said, that can make material life rather difficult because it can be harder to generate material things in our life compared to the ease with which some other people seem to be able to do so. But from a spiritual perspective, we're right up there, generally speaking, when we have Jupiter retrograde in our chart, because we seek things from a philosophical point of view. We question, we seek, we want to expand, we want to grow our soul when we have Jupiter retrograde natally, and that's where the collective is going to want out of this particular time as well. But you know something that's really, really cool, something that I love about Jupiter retrograding? Jupiter retrograde has the ability to restore to life things that seemed like they were dead and dying. It's very Jesus energy, isn't it? You know, have you had a relationship conclude over the last 6 months during Jupiter direct season? Have you had a home situation fall apart during Jupiter direct season? Have you had financial circumstances be decimated over Jupiter direct season in the last 6 months? Jupiter retrograde, like Jesus, can resurrect you from the dead and bring things back to life again. Things that you thought were dead and gone and over and done with can come back to life. The next 6 months while Jupiter retrogrades can be so empowering for breathing life back into areas of our lives that we thought were dead as a dodo. So I find this is a fascinating retrograde period, and I'm sure you're going to find it that way too over the next 4 to 5 months while Jupiter is retrograding. So the final energy that I wanted to mention this week, this one's happening on the 28th. Then there's a final energy which will be a full moon, sorry, the new moon rather. Get it right, the new moon up here in Leo. That's occurring on the 29th. I talk about this and I break down what this beautiful new moon, it's going to be gorgeous. This beautiful Leo new moon, I break it down for all signs in my Patreon video. If you want to join Patreon and catch up with all the videos there, it's only, well, if you want to just get the new moon video, I think it's something like $3 for the month just to get this new moon video. If you want to pay €5 a month, you will get access to all the videos of the month and any of the back catalogue as well. So it's a really good deal if you want to catch up on some astrology and learn what's happening for your sign with the full moon and the new moon that are occurring this month. Okay, but now let's dive into the all signs breakdown. And again, just to reiterate, we are looking at Jupiter retrograding from 8 degrees of Aries back to 28 degrees of Pisces. Our main focus for this all signs breakdown is going to be Jupiter's retrograde through Aries, which is going to be for 3 out of the 4 months of his retrograde period. So he's retrograding from the 28th of July through to the 23rd of November this year. So what are we looking at? Well, this is where we're going to see that our striving for material accomplishment might leave us feeling a bit empty. You know, we're going to redefine what success is for ourselves, where we're going to be questioning our lives and looking within, finding answers philosophically within us while Jupiter is retrograde. It's where we're going to be searching for answers that give meaning to the course of our lives and why we're here. It's going to be where we might have an easy ability to heal as well, because Jupiter retrograde can do that. Depending, it's stronger in some houses than another, but that is one of the qualities of Jupiter retrograde. And it's also going to be where we can restore things to life that have died or are dying. We can breathe new life back into things that we thought were gone. So let's begin with Aries as the first house where this retrograde is occurring, my beautiful Aries friends. Well, this is the house of survival. the main reason for our incarnation. It's going to influence you very personally to have Jupiter retrograding in your first house here, Aries. So this is where it can restore you to life, to be honest. Because let's say that your body has been struggling. Maybe, you've been feeling weak and tired. You're lacking in vitality, which is very un-Aries-like, but we do have times like that in our lives. And you're feeling like, oh, I just haven't got the energy anymore. I haven't got the oomph that I need to go out there and to survive and thrive in the world, to initiate new things, to create the life that I want, to assert my willpower, which are very first house Aries things to do. You might feel like my vitality is just gone. My body just doesn't have the strength. Well, Jupiter here, when it turns direct, can give the ability over the next 4 months to restore your vitality. So to lift you up energetically so that you do start to initiate new things, so that you do feel like you can survive and thrive and assert your willpower in the world, Aries. So a lovely energy to have happening in your first house. You're going to be looking for the meaning of life while Jupiter is retrograding in your first house. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I here to do with my body in this incarnation? Physically, what should I be doing with my life? Jupiter will cause you to ask those sorts of questions and indeed start looking within yourself for answers as well. So this transit can can end up giving us more meaning to our life. We can sort of find those answers if we take the time, and you should take the time while Jupiter is retrograding in your first house to reflect. What gives me purpose? What gives me a sense of fulfillment? What makes me feel like I am accomplishing my mission here on earth? What I suggest to my children all the time is to write down 5 things that they're good at and 5 things that they love to do. And if any of those things correspond, I say this quite a bit in my readings actually, so you may have heard me say this, but if any of those things correspond with one another, then that's part of the mission and purpose that you're here to fulfill. It's as easy as that. Following your heart is really what we're here to do in this lifetime. So ponder these things, Aries. Think about what gives meaning to life, what gives purpose to your life, and you might find that you come up with a solution for meaning and purpose that's going to fulfill you and give you more oomph and enthusiasm and vitality going forward into the future after Jupiter's finished its retrograde period. So just to conclude on this, beautiful, beautiful Aries friends, you might be restoring your body to life, giving more vitality to yourself through this period. You might do that through changing your diet or your exercise routine, or taking a bit of time for more rest where you've been burnt out or something, restoring your body to life. But it can also restore to life any means of survival. You might have thought the rug's been pulled out from under me and I'm struggling to make ends meet and put food on the table and just survive on this incarnation. And along comes Jupiter retrograde in your first house, and suddenly you are far, far more capable than you ever thought possible of surviving, thriving, and not only that, flourishing in the world. The next 4 months could see the tables really turn in that regard for you, my beautiful Aries friends. All right. Taurus rising, Taurus sun, Taurus moon people. The energy of Jupiter retrograding in Aries for the first 3 months of its retrograde period. This is sort of July, well, it won't be July, it'll be practically August, September, and October. The retrograde is occurring in your 12th house. Now, this is a house where it's difficult to get a grasp on things. We feel that, when we've got influences in our 12th house, that things are a bit out of control. But this is also a very protected energy having Jupiter here, because Jupiter is very much at home in the 12th house. The 12th house is like Pisces energy, and Jupiter has a natural affiliation because of that with the 12th house. So Jupiter is your protection, your guardian angel from things feeling out of control, from things feeling a bit crazy and foggy and misty and I can't quite get a grip on things. Jupiter is there to hold space for you while he is direct and retrograde in this area. This is the house of our past life karma and our past life experiences as well. So Jupiter here is causing you to ponder on who you are and why you are the way you are. You might think about your life and might sort of come to some conclusions like, why am I afraid of heights? or why am I scared of going in the ocean? And you might start to ponder on these things, because Jupiter is to look for meaning and look for answers, especially looking within us in a place like the 12th house, which is a very psychological house. So you start questioning, and you might actually come to some conclusions. Well, you know what? It's been with me since childhood, this fear of the water or this fear of heights. Maybe it's a past life thing that's being triggered in me, and maybe I should look at doing some therapy, or take some sort of psychological course or something to heal that fear, that phobia, that hang up that I've got, that I don't know where it's coming from, but it's obviously deeply in my psyche. So Jupiter can cause us to explore those topics when he's retrograding in our 12th house. And why not? Why not try and heal yourself? This is a healing house. The 12th house is a healing house, and this is a healing energy to have Jupiter retrograding, because it causes us to evaluate where the problems are coming from in our lives and then take appropriate action to rectify them. Also, when Jupiter is retrograde, as I said in the intro, he can restore things to life, things that are dead, things that are dying. Now, this is, it's not like you're going to start living your past life again, but it can bring those past life experiences very close to the surface for you in order to heal them. And I've kind of just described that in a way, bringing those awarenesses closer to the surface. The veil becomes thinner, and we can actually grasp what we were doing in past lives that may be causing issues now for us in this life, and begin to heal those things. So that's what's being restored to life, not restoring your past life experiences into reality now, but more about bringing those things to your awareness, or closer to your awareness, so that they can be dealt with and restored and healed. Your life can be healed. So that's another thing that is happening with this. This is also when Jupiter is retrograding, and we're more introspective and philosophical and questioning. We look for ways to liberate ourselves. This is a moksha house, a house of liberation. So it's about letting things go that are holding us back. So we're questioning, where in our lives am I not liberated? Am I not free, Taurus? Where am I living a life of bondage and jail and prison, theoretically speaking, or metaphorically speaking, I should say. And so this can be a great time when you are released from those bondages and when you experience liberation during Jupiter retrograde in the 12th house. I would encourage you to make the most of this energy by taking time where you can for the next 4 months, particularly the first 3 months of this retrograde period, to go into privacy and seclusion and pray, meditate, spend time writing in your journal, deep soul exploration practices, art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, journaling, those sorts of things. It's also a good time to have a holiday, particularly to like a wellness retreat or some sort of a resort or something like that, if you can manage that, or even just taking a weekend off to sort of indulge in some sort of escapism that really is healthy for you. By doing those sorts of things, you can actually really work with that Jupiter energy to empower yourself and heal yourself and restore yourself. So sleeping is also highly regarded during this time. So, plan for a few sleeps in over the coming 3 months period. This Saturday I'm going to just not schedule anything until 12 at midday, and just allow myself whatever time my body needs to rest and rejuvenate. Very, very helpful during Jupiter retrograde period. Thank you, my beautiful Taurus friends. Now we're going to look at Gemini rising, Gemini sun, Gemini moon. And for you lovely friends, you have Jupiter retrograding in Aries for about 3 months in your 11th house, and then Jupiter is going to retrograde into your 10th house. We're just focusing on the Jupiter retrograde influence in the 11th house for you Gemini friends at the moment. This is the house of where we can be profitable, where we can be gainful. And when Jupiter is retrograding, you might have felt, for a start, you might have felt that the things, your ability to achieve and be profitable and gainful and receive recognition and rewards out in the world has been struggling. Maybe for a while you've been struggling to receive the recognition that you feel that you're due, or to get the just rewards that you feel you deserve, Gemini. Maybe you're a hairdresser and you've studied hairdressing for eons, and you have just not been able to get that high-level boutique job that you really, really wanted. Well, along comes Jupiter retrograding in your 11th house of rewards and gains for the work that you've done in your career, and boom, you're suddenly able to land that stellar position with that high level paycheck and that great international recognition at one of the top salons in Sydney or something like that. So this is a time when, because Jupiter's only here retrograding in your 11th house once every 12 years. It's not a regular occurrence. So this is a once in 12-year opportunity to restore something to life regarding rewards and gains and achievements out there in the world that you might have thought was dead and over and done. And here it is, new life is breathed back into it. You're restored. You rise like Jesus from the dead. So quite an exciting time for Gemini friends. If you had invested in the stock market, and I'm no financial advisor, so I'm not here to give financial advice, but what I'm saying astrologically is the 11th house is connected to the stock market. Maybe you've invested in some stocks years and years ago or something like that, and they just have never done any good. And you thought, that was a waste of time and effort, wasn't it? Lo and behold, Jupiter retrograding for the first time in 12 years in your 11th house could breathe new life back into those stocks, and all of a sudden they start performing for you. Something you thought was dead and I shouldn't have bothered, what a waste. Oof, they come back to life and bless you. It's also an area of the chart that has to do with the wealth that we make from our contribution to the world. I kind of illustrated this when I was talking about, working in a salon as a high-level hairdresser or something like that. But the same thing, we might have not made much money from what we do out there in the world, and then along comes Jupiter retrograde in the 11th house, and boom, our wealth from our offering to the world suddenly is restored to life. So it's really quite an exciting time to have Jupiter retrograding in such an auspicious house as the 11th house, and in a sign where Jupiter has great dignity as well. Jupiter likes to be in fire signs. Dreams, ambitions, desires, wishes are all seen from the 11th house as well. You might have given up on a goal or a dream and said, forget it. Why do I even bother? Why do I even try? And then along comes Jupiter here, and he restores to life a goal, a dream, a wish, an ambition that you have had for years, and it's suddenly, like fanning the flames. Suddenly those coals start to fire up again, and you get going with your dreams. You restore those dreams back to life. It's also the house of friendships. Some of your friendships, and let's face it, a lot of friendships have fallen by the wayside over the last 2 to 3 years based on differences of opinion that have absolutely decimated, the nature of our friendships. What we thought were really strong, solid friendships turned out to be not built on much, and ended up falling apart. Well, this energy for Gemini friends can see the friends of Gemini people suddenly coming back into their lives, restored to life. You might have thought that friendship was out the door. And then along comes this energy of Jupiter retrograde in the 11th house, and those friends come back into your life. They're restored, and maybe there's some apologies due or something like that. But you have the philosophical, optimistic approach of Jupiter within to allow you to be gracious and welcome friendships back into your life that you might have thought were over and done and dusted. There's also an easier ability to heal when Jupiter is retrograde. So healing those friendships and healing those wounds can happen much easier now than at other times when Jupiter is not retrograde in your house of friendships. So good news for us all, and good news for you, Gemini people. Cancer rising, Cancer sun, Cancer moon. Friends, we have Jupiter retrograding in your 10th house, an angular house. And whenever we have action in an angular house, we know it's powerful. It brings about more significantly noticeable change. And whoops, we're going for a walk by the looks of things, Cancer friends. Back to our chart. We know that Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer, and here it is actually making a square aspect to your sign by being in an angular house. So very, very powerful for Jupiter to be at the highest point in the horoscope, at the zenith of the horoscope here, where everyone can see him, so to speak, or at least in your chart that is the case. And it is therefore the house of our example to others, how our reputation is, and our social status out there in the world. Now, you might have had your reputation smashed by something that occurred in the last few months, particularly while Jupiter was direct. So maybe your reputation or your social standing has really suffered from something or other. And then lo and behold, Jupiter goes retrograde in your 10th house. What do we see? The chance for your reputation to be restored and brought back to life again. The chance for your social status to go back to the level that it was prior to some difficulty occurring. Whenever Jupiter is retrograde, it gives us the chance to restore things to life that we thought were dead or we thought were dying. So reputation's one thing, but also career. Like you might have put in for a career promotion and then you didn't get it and you're gutted and you're just, I should give up on that idea. I'll just stay here in the mail room of the big company forever and I'm not going to, go for anything beyond this. And so your ambitions, which are a 10th house thing, your aspirations, a 10th house thing, you might have thought were dead. And along comes Jupiter retrograding in your 10th house, and maybe somebody comes down to the mailroom one day and says, hey, look, I know you didn't get that promotion that you put in for, but we're really impressed with the work that you do, and actually we'd like you to take this role up in the accountancy department, and because we think you do really great. There is a new restoration, a new breath of life breathed into career, goals and aspirations and so forth that you might have for contributing to the world out there. So Jupiter can do that in career realms as well. With leadership, Jupiter can do the same. It might be restoring to life. You thought you had a great leadership opportunity. It didn't happen, or you were in a leadership position and then you had a fall from grace. And then Jupiter comes back and gives you that, the chance to redeem yourself. Jupiter retrograde can be very powerful like that in the 10th house. Maybe you had a desire to leave some legacy for the people who came after you, whether that was a book of poetry or an album of songs that you'd written. Maybe you had some sort of very close to your heart legacy that you wanted to leave the world when you were gone. Maybe it might have been a beautiful garden or a vegetable patch or something like that. And something happened where, that legacy was not able to manifest exactly the way you wanted, or there was a struggle with it or a problem and whatever. Lo and behold, Jupiter retrograde in the 10th house can restore that legacy back to life so that you have something to leave, something to give, something to hand on to the generations that come after you. Some legacy is given a new, fresh lease of life because of Jupiter retrograde in the 10th house. This is also where you might be looking for answers and meaning for life. Does your career give you a sense of meaning and purpose, my friends? Or do you feel like it's just a waste of time, waste of energy? Jupiter is going to get you, Jupiter retrograde, I should say, is going to get you questioning those things, questioning your life, looking within. What is the real meaning and purpose? Is this truth to me? Does this feel like meaningfulness, essentially? Me being in this particular career, doing this particular job or whatever. And you will be questioning those things, and it could actually redirection your life potentially as well during Jupiter retrograde period if you cannot find meaning and purpose and substance in what you're doing out there in the world. So thank you, my lovely Cancer friends. I hope you're blessed by this Jupiter retrograde period in your 10th house. For our lovely birthday group, Leo Sun people, this week we are seeing Jupiter, this week, the next 3 months, we're seeing Jupiter retrograding through your 9th house, a very blessed house of the horoscope. Let me just make sure the astro wheel doesn't go for a walk. Okay, through the 9th house. So this is where Jupiter is going to be turning inward. And the 9th house is the house of communication with the gods. We might be, as Leo people, we might be hearing the gods, the divine, speak very deeply to us. And so taking time out for reflection and meditation, taking a walk by the lake to sort of ponder things and communicate with spirit is a great idea under this energy for the next 3 months while Jupiter is retrograding in Aries before it moves into Pisces. This is where we can be really tapping into the divine. The divine will have messages for us that will come through loud and clear when we take the opportunity to listen to what they're speaking to us, to what our divine, not masters, but the gods are trying to say to us. So this is also the house of purpose, Leo, the house of our purpose and mission, what gives our life meaning. And again, when we're introspective during Jupiter retrograde season, we start to find the answers. We start to find the truth. You know, instead of looking out there beyond us to give us meaning and purpose, we start looking within. You know, how within myself, how can I be self-sufficiently satisfied with the meaning and purpose of my life? So again, journaling, pondering, praying, meditating, all good things to do during Jupiter retrograde in the 9th house. We might be evaluating our belief systems, finding our truth, finding our freedom, finding our liberation as well. Now, Jupiter, when he is retrograde, has the energy of, you've heard me say it probably in this reading already, the energy of Jesus, where you can raise something from the dead, you know. You can restore something to life that has been dead or dying. And for our beautiful Leo friends, it could be a belief system that you held dear at one point in life, but then for some reason it fell by the wayside. And something might happen in the next 3 months where there's an element of that belief system that comes back into your life and is restored in some way. Some knowledge of the truth that comes to you. Maybe you'd forgotten it, or it had slipped from your memory and it comes back to you and is restored to life. Maybe you felt like once upon a time you had a purpose and a mission in life that gave you meaning and purpose, but you haven't been able to live that mission, that meaning, that purpose for years perhaps. And because Jupiter is only here once every 12 years, and here is Jupiter in your 12th house, retrograding, restoring whatever it was that gave your life meaning and purpose to life again. Look, I'm a Leo person, Leo sun person. Quite frankly, I used to get a lot of meaning and purpose out of my life, aside from astrology, by creating beautiful gardens, tranquil gardens where people could find peace. I love gardening. And I haven't been able to do that because of where I've had to live for the last few years. But there's a part of me that's been sort of inching into the idea of getting back into that and trying to make it happen again. And so when I see Jupiter retrograding in the 9th house, I'm like, it may just come true for me, manifest for me, that I can actually start to go back to that meaning and purpose for my life and start to live it again. While Jupiter is retrograding here, because I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't been able to do it for about 12 years since Jupiter was last in this realm of the chart. So bring it. So that's just an example of how that can work. This is also the ability to have adventures is the 9th house as well. So if you have found that you haven't been able to sort of step out of your comfort zone and take on the adventures that you might want to have through travel or through study or expanding your heart or soul or mind in some way, maybe there's been circumstances in your life that have prevented that from happening. Lo and behold, Jupiter retrograding in your 9th house can give you the chance to restore back to life your adventurous spirit and the ability to manifest adventurous occurrences in your life, like traveling to a foreign country or expanding your mind through some sort of study. Come and study with me at the Royal Stars Academy if you're so inclined. So quite a powerful placement, especially in the 9th house of travel. We may see a lot of Leo people, sun, moon or rising people traveling under this retrograde period. Even if that's not overseas or something like Australia, for example, is a big country, America's a big country, it could just mean that you travel to the next state or something like that on a big journey of some description that could expand your heart, your soul, your mind under Jupiter retrograde. The 9th house is also our morals, our ethics. And I am not one, I have Uranus moon, most people know that. I'm not one for conforming to the rules of society for my morals and my ethics by any stretch. But Jupiter, when it's retrograding, can cause us to ponder and review and look within about, well, where's my moral standing about a certain issue, about a certain topic? And we might be reviewing those things and taking a philosophical approach to certain moral standards in society and making up our mind afresh about those particular things during this time. This is the house of good karma as well. There's 2 good karma houses, the 5th house and the 9th. So, in that sense, if you have good karma from a past lifetime owing to you, Jupiter can, when he's retrograding, can bring that about. And also, I must say, when he's direct, he can sometimes do that as well. But as we know, as you've heard me say, when Jupiter is retrograding, he can bring things back to life that have died. And maybe you haven't seen the results of good karma in your life for months, weeks, years even. And lo and behold, Jupiter retrograding for the first time in 12 years in your ninth house of good karma might see some good karma coming back to you for the hard work and the rewards for the good stuff, the good deeds that you have done to serve, help, heal, and fix the world. So that's exciting too. Another thing, if you are, it's the house of the second life partner, the ninth house. So if you're a Leo person and you have a second life partner and maybe, the relationship hasn't been so flash, been maybe fighting a lot, or there's been some issues and upsets in your life with your second life partner. I'm talking committed partner here. Could be a committed business partner, a contractual business partner, the second business partner you've ever had in your life, or it could be a marriage partner, second marriage, or second person you've had children with, or something like that. That's what we see from the ninth house. Well, this Jupiter retrograde phase in your ninth house of second partner can see that partnership, Leo, is restored to life. That partnership, you might have thought it was dead, or it was dying, or it was over, or, maybe you separated for a while, or they left you and you were like, well, that's it, it's all done, all over, Red Rover. Lo and behold, Jupiter retrograding through this ninth house can breathe fresh life back into that relationship, that second life partnership that you thought was dead and done, and can raise that partnership back from the dead, which all sounds rather lovely if that's what you want in your life. So thank you, my lovely Leo friends. Now for our gorgeous Virgo family. Virgo rising, sun or moon. We are seeing Jupiter retrograding through Aries for 3 months. I'm just going to make sure this board doesn't go for a walk. Jupiter retrograding through Aries, your 8th house, for the next 3 months of his retrograde period. He's going to be retrograde for 4 months in all. But only 3 months of that will be in Aries, and then 1 month in Pisces. So what does this mean for Virgo to have Jupiter retrograding in the 8th house? Well, there is a natural healing ability that Jupiter has when he is retrograde in the 8th house. So if there is anything in your life that needs healing, Virgo, I would be praying about it. Jupiter is prayer, rules prayer. I would be praying about it. I would be asking for divine intervention as you head into retrograde season to heal certain areas of life. And I'm talking psychological areas as well as physical areas. So you're one of the 3 signs that has Jupiter retrograding in a placement where he is a natural healer. So use that to your advantage. He's only here once every 12 years. So because of the rarity of his retrograde through this area of the chart, this is your kind of divine chance to heal your soul, your body, your heart, your spirit, your mind, through prayer and asking for divine intervention. This is a house of the magical and the mystical as well. So tap into that, utilize those things, do some magical rituals, or involve yourself in some sort of mystical practice now, and it can be made all the more powerful for you, because this house, the 8th house, is a very deep house, a very introspective house, a house of the within, and psychological house as well. And so Jupiter, when he is turned inward through his retrograde motion, causes us to question our lives, question our accomplishments, look for meaning and purpose inside of us instead of out there in the world. And so by doing mystical, magical 8th house practices, rituals, connecting with shaman, perhaps doing some dream work and that kind of stuff, or energy healing, those sorts of things, when we get involved in that kind of thing, then it assists our introspective work that can free us. This is one of the moksha houses. I've already talked about the 12th house being a moksha house. So is the 8th house. It's a house of liberation. Liberation from darkness in, let's hope, for many people, and sort of maybe confusion or things being hidden from them. So you can free yourself from that during Jupiter retrograde by looking within and by incorporating maybe some mystical, magical practices to support that work. This is also where we can raise something back to life. And that could be something very straightforward and practical, such as you might have thought you were cut out of grandma's will for some reason or another, or mum and dad had cut you off from, the legacy they wanted to leave because, had a falling out with them or something. When Jupiter retrogrades through the 8th house, you can restore that back to life and get reinstated in the will, or back in the good books with mum and dad so that you are in line to receive their legacy. There is a restoration, like a raising from the dead, that occurs when Jupiter goes retrograde once every 12 years in a certain part of the chart. It could also be your sex life, Virgo. Maybe, you're, to use a rather crass expression, there's a need to clear the cobwebs away down there. And because it's been like dead as a dodo for years, no one's been on the scene, there's nothing happening. Lo and behold, Jupiter retrograde through your 8th house of sex can blow those cobwebs away and bring things back to life. And not just in a physical body sense as well. It's desire and libido and passion can be restored for Virgo people as well now, which is really the beautiful side of this energy, to restore to life a heart that had thought it could never experience that joy again, but we're never too old for all that sort of thing. If you are going through a divorce, Virgo people, this is actually an energy where that relationship might get restored back to life again. This is a house of divorce. Usually it does pertain to the results of the divorce, who gets what property is seen through the 8th house. But let's say maybe the divorce doesn't get restored back to a happy marriage, but let's say, you thought you were going to lose the house in the divorce and it was all over, Red Rover, and no more, you walked away with nothing. Well, lo and behold, Jupiter retrograding in your 11th house, 8th house of divorce and the property settlement and so forth, could perhaps see some of you walking away with what you thought you were going to lose. Something you thought that was dead and done gets restored back to you in some way while Jupiter is retrograde. Now, I don't want to pin your hopes on that because Kesenya said, but with Jupiter retrograde, that is one of the expressions. It restores things back to life. So that's one possible scenario. Perhaps for somebody listening out there, it's the accurate scenario that will manifest. It's also, the 8th house is the house of moral support from other people as well. And you might have thought, nobody's got my back. Nobody, is supporting me. No one's behind me. I'm all alone in the world. This is a house of what we receive from others, and that includes moral support as well as tangible financial stuff. So lo and behold, Jupiter retrograding in this realm of the chart can suddenly reveal to you how supported you are, upheld you are, loved you are. You get the moral support, the backing, the friendship, the foundational help that you need in a very psychological way, shall we say, that you need to go ahead with life and take that next step or move forward in some way. So quite an empowering placement for sure. Lovely, lovely, lovely energy for you. I will also just add, Virgo friends, that this is a very introspective energy, and this is a very introspective, deep, deep house. I fully expect that by the end of this retrograde period that you will be a new person. You will be transformed. You will see the world through a different set of eyes and understand things very, very differently. Your concept of the world, your concept of yourself in the world is likely to change quite profoundly after this Jupiter retrograde period in the 8th house of your chart. So thank you, Virgo friends. Now for our delightful Librans. And I did notice, Libra people, I had to notice, and I love you so much, but when I put my videos together last week and divided them into 12 separate videos, which was just an experiment on my behalf, I couldn't help but notice that Libra had the highest amount of views. So what does that tell me? There is mostly Libran people, more than any other sign, watching my videos. I couldn't be happier. I love you guys. I love you guys so much. Yes, my Libran moon and you guys, we're all connected. It's great. So Libra, you are having Jupiter retrograding in the 7th house. This is for Libra rising, sun or moon people. What does this mean? Maybe, Libra, you have felt that a business partnership has fallen apart or was, coming, unhinged in some way, or maybe a relationship was starting to show some fraying around the edges, so to speak. And lo and behold, Jupiter retrograde, which is all about raising things from the dead, bringing things back to life, can actually restore that relationship back to a healthy state of being, a healthy interaction, healthy love. Or a healthy business practice, as the case may be. This is a very business-oriented house as well. So this is wonderful for Libra people who were very concerned about a relationship. The energy of Jupiter retrograding here does have the power to do that. Now, let's not say that for everybody it's going to see that manifest, but why not put the work in just the same, Librans? You're very good at relationships. You really know how to do them well. Why not invest a little in relationships over the next 3 months and just see what happens and whether Jupiter does restore a relationship that was struggling back to life. It could be a contract that's falling apart, looking like it's going to end, and Jupiter could restore it back to life in a better way than it was before. It could be some sort of trade agreement, some negotiations, some sort of diplomacy that's needed that was really starting to come unraveled. And here Jupiter retrogrades in the house of negotiating, trade, diplomacy, and it all starts to work well again. So that's one of the energies that Jupiter retrograde can represent. It's not like the Pluto energy where things sort of get raised, you die and then it's, you're raised to life again like the phoenix bird restored from the ashes, but you're completely transformed and you're not the same again. What this Jupiter retrograde energy is like is something looks like it's dead, but then it comes back and it's restored to health. So it's not transformed, it's just brought back to health again when you thought it was all over, Red Rover. So that's the difference. I hope you can see what the Pluto energy is transformational. You'll never be the same again. But this energy is more like, let's bring things back to a good state of being, a healthy state of being, back to life, back to what it was. So that's what the difference is here. Now, this is also the house of how we perceive others, how we treat others, what we attract from other people. And you might be introspecting on these topics a lot, thinking about, why do people always treat me like X, Y, Z? And, what do I actually think of people? Do I think all people driving out there on the road are a pack of idiots? You start to ponder, because Jupiter retrograde is to look within, to get philosophical about you and your life and how you're interacting with others in the case of the 7th house, how you're treating others, how they're treating you, what you're attracting from other people in terms of how they're treating you. And we start to get philosophical about those things. And through that, we can change our lives in terms of our relationships with others, not just our intimate relationships like marriages or business partnerships, but any kind of relationship with clients, with the people we meet on the street. Because our inner perception changes when Jupiter goes retrograde, then our interactions out there in the world result. It's the old Hermetic principle of as within, so without. We see shifts of energy that that do change what we experience in the body out there in the world. Now, also, because this is happening in the house of your partners, Libra, you might find that your partners are becoming much more introspective than usual. They're becoming more philosophical. They're questioning their life. They're looking for more meaning and purpose. They're searching for answers in ways they haven't done before. And you might notice this quite obviously in your partners more so than yourself during this time. Your partners might be looking to revive themselves. You could even find that your partners, because this is actually the house of your partner, and Aries for a Libra person rules the body of your partner. So you might find, Libran friends, that your marriage partner is sick of, looking like Homer Simpson in front of the telly every night, and he decides, if you're a woman with a masculine partner, he decides that he's going to get out and go jogging every night and transform his body or restore his body back to health and well-being. Get on a diet, get on the treadmill, start taking care of himself, going to the gym, going for a swim after work every night and stuff like that. Or in some way he's restoring his vitality, interested in or her vitality if you're got a female partner, restoring vitality, restoring physical health, bodily health and well-being in your partner. So just observe, knowing what Jupiter's up to, just observe, what's your partner up to? Are they getting more active? Are they more proactive about taking care of themselves? And if they do that over the next 3 months or so, then you'll know why. And thank Jupiter retrograde for that blessing. So that's what I see unfolding for you with the Jupiter retrograde period in Aries, my lovely Libran friends. All right, Scorpio rising, sun or moon people. We are seeing Jupiter retrograding in the sign of Aries. It will be a month in the sign of Pisces as well, Scorpio, but I'm only concentrating on the effect when he is in Aries. That is occurring for you in the 6th house. And this is one of the houses, even though it's a malefic house in Vedic astrology, it's one of the houses that has a natural healing ability when Jupiter retrogrades there. So I would encourage you, Scorpio, this is a once in 12-year opportunity for you to pray, for you to, request answers from the divine. Jupiter represents, connection to the divine realm. So pray, ask for answers, meditate on ways to heal yourself. This is a house of practical healing as well, the 6th house. So Jupiter retrograding here might inspire you to undertake some course of practical healing, a new diet, new exercise routine, maybe going regularly to see the naturopath or the dietitian or something like that to heal your body. You can also heal your mind here as well through perhaps introspecting. Jupiter retrograde is to introspect, to get philosophical, to observe and look for answers within you rather than expecting answers to come from outside of you, from other people or the government or whoever. You start to look for answers within when Jupiter retrogrades in the 6th house. In the shadow side, the 6th house is the house of the victim mentality, where we say, well, it's their fault and I blame them and poor me. Jupiter retrograding here is going to cause, like I said, you to introspect, and you will see where you are acting like a victim. That will start to be made clear to you as Jupiter retrogrades. And you'll be like, oh my goodness, I had this victim mentality. I thought the world owed me. And you might come to the philosophical conclusion that you need to be more stoic and you need to sort of take responsibility for your life. Okay, I was victimized as a child, but what am I doing now to heal that and to live a healthy, whole, restored life? That's the kind of philosophical thing that Jupiter can, through our introspective work during Jupiter retrograde, that can be revealed to us. I'm always poor. Why am I always poor? Is there something in my attitude? Is there something in my behavior? The answers can be found during Jupiter retrograde when we look within and we examine ourselves with humility, another 6th house quality, to be humble enough to recognize where we have been the cause and then to make the changes necessary to alter our life. A lot of people redirection their lives when Jupiter is retrograde in the 6th house because of this opportunity to just look within and understand, okay, this is what's really going on. This is the energy I'm carrying that's attracting all these difficulties to me. So my gorgeous Scorpio friends, this is the opportunity for you to do that and maybe just really change your life and the direction of your life through understanding what you're doing with your energy that can be drawing difficulties to you. This is also the house of karma and our karmic responsibilities to serve, to heal, to help, and to fix things in the world. And so you might be pondering this sort of thing now. Or, for example, Jupiter in retrograde motion represents things that have died and that need to be brought back to life. It could be that some act of service that you used to do in your 20s and you've stopped doing needs to be brought back to life. Maybe you spent time in soup kitchens in your 20s helping, cook soup for people who have no food. Or maybe you were involved in some mission organization, or whatever it happens to look like. Maybe you were heavily involved in some service and it's fallen by the wayside. And service, Scorpio, is the way that we burn our shitty past life karma. It's the way we heal our karma so that we can receive good rewards in the future. It's through service, simple as that. And so the remedy for bad karma is to serve. If you've let some act of service and kindness and compassion fall by the wayside in your life, Jupiter retrograding here can reveal to you where you need to get back on board with that. Now, I'm not saying burn the candle at both ends and wear yourself out trying to help, serve, heal, and fix, but find a way to contribute to the world. Whether that's just, you grow pumpkins in your backyard and you give everybody in your street a pumpkin because you've got far more than you can ever use. It's an act of service to give them a free pumpkin, some food that you've grown. Could be something like that. That's an act of service. It doesn't have to be that, you go and spend every Saturday at the soup kitchen. It can be anything that's an act of service and kindness. Jupiter can restore to life your heart for charity, to help, to heal, to serve, to fix, that ultimately blesses you in the long run because it rids you of heavy karma. So that's something that can be restored to life. Now, obviously, the 6th house is also the house of imbalance, where our finances are imbalanced, where our our education is imbalanced, where our relationships with our work colleagues is imbalanced, where connections with enemies brings imbalance to our life. I could go on and on listing all the imbalances that are represented by the sixth house. But Jupiter is where we can restore things to life. So if you have been in a state of poverty, or if you have been in a state of ill health, if you have been in a state of lack of education, Jupiter can restore you through his retrograde motion, like Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead, can restore you to a state of flourishing with your finances, or well-being with your health, or getting the opportunity for education that you didn't think you could have. Jupiter can restore these things to life when you thought that your opportunities for those things were dead and done. So lots of potential with this energy. I would encourage you, Scorpio people, to pray, to introspect, to seek answers from the divine to how you can heal all these areas of your life, not just your physical health, but your financial health, your educational health, if you want to call it that. Everything, every area of your life. Pray, seek answers, because the retrograde Jupiter in a powerful sign like Aries does have the ability to restore back to life that which you thought was lost. So thank you, my lovely Scorpio friends. Now we're moving on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius rising, sun or moon. What a gorgeous place to have Jupiter retrograding in your sign of Aries for the next 3 months. Then Jupiter's going to move for a month into Pisces when it's retrograding before it turns direct again. But I'm going to just focus on your 5th house, Aries, for Scorpio people. Well, maybe you've had a relationship with your children that has been really struggling. Maybe there's been some animosity or misunderstandings, or something's just up with you and your kids. This is the energy you've been waiting for, because what this can bring is a restoration of the relationship with your children. Because when Jupiter is retrograde, and it will only do so in your 5th house of children once every 12 years, Sagittarius people. When it retrogrades in your house of children, it's like Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. And who knows, maybe that story in the Bible was actually a metaphorical story for the Jupiter retrograde period, because Jupiter retrograde is when we can raise things back to life, restore them back to life. If you've had a shit relationship with your children for some reason, or a lack of respect from your children, or frustration with your children, this is the energy that can bring that relationship back into a healthy place. Now, it's not going to transform that relationship into something that it never was, but it can bring it back to life, back to the good that it used to be. It's up to you to transform things for the future, of course. But this is the energy that can help bring things back to a state of life rather than death when Jupiter retrogrades here. Wherever Jupiter retrogrades is where we can have an easier ability to heal things. And if you need to heal rifts with children, then this is the perfect time. And the same goes for lovers. My beautiful Sagittarius friends, if you have a lover who maybe things have fallen apart, or you've been separated, or something hasn't gone well, this is your time over the next 3 months. If you want to restore that to life, Jupiter's got your back. Reach out to that lover, reach out to that boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, and you may very well be able to breathe new life back into that relationship and restore it to what it was. Jupiter has the ability to do that when he is retrograding only once every 12 years in the house of lovers, romance, boyfriends, girlfriends, dating, all that nice stuff that we like in our relationships. It's the house of love. To restore love back into your life, Jupiter can do that now when he retrogrades in a powerful sign for Jupiter like Aries. Jupiter is also where we introspect. So for many Sagittarian people, they will be introspecting about love. They'll be getting philosophical about love during Jupiter retrograde process, where you question, what's love all about? What's the meaning of love? What am I searching for in love? This is where when Jupiter retrogrades, it's going to be where we're searching for answers, where we're going to be searching for meaning with regard to love in our life. What we love, why we love, who we love. We're questioning all these things and trying to find answers and solutions philosophically in our soul. And, we shouldn't be looking when Jupiter is retrograding outside ourselves. Well, what do they think love is? Or what does this meme say love is? No. Jupiter retrograde says, what is it for me? inside me? What is truth with regard to love for me? So don't go looking outside of yourself. Jupiter wants you to make choices and decisions about those topics based on your own heart, your own soul, basically, your own soul journey. Finally, the fifth house, quite practically, is a house of entertainments, fun, and hobbies. So that's why I say practically. Other things are relationship oriented, but hobbies tend to be quite practical. So, maybe you haven't had time to pursue one of your hobbies for years. Maybe you love to draw, or you might have loved cross stitch when you were a teenager or something like that. And you just, the busyness of life, you just haven't had time for that joy, that exhilaration that hobby brought you. And it's, the fire has gone out with that particular hobby. Well, when Jupiter retrogrades once every 12 years in this part of the chart, lo and behold, you might dig out that old cross stitch and take it up again. Breathe life back into that hobby. Or you might get out your drawing toolkit and, start drawing, whatever it is, the tree outside the window or something, and come back to life with the hobbies that once upon a time brought you joy, brought you happiness. There is a revival of joy when Jupiter goes retrograde in this area of the chart. So lots to look forward to, lots to celebrate with Jupiter going retrograde. And I will say this is also one of the houses of good karma. If you felt like your life has been full of, difficult karmic repercussions in recent days, weeks, months, years, then lo and behold, Jupiter retrograding here can bring back to us and breathe life back into the good karma that we have earned and stored up over many lifetimes, and things can start to go right for you again. Yay, Sagittarius, good news. Thank you, Sagittarius. Now our Capricorn rising, sun or moon people. The energy of Capricorn retrograding, and I'm going to just stop Capricorn actually retrograding. The energy of Jupiter retrograding in your fourth house here is what we're looking at. And we're only looking at Jupiter's retrograde for the next 3 months through the fourth house. Jupiter will go retrograde into Pisces for about a month, sort of in November. But we're not looking at that here. We're looking at the influence on the fourth house, which is where Jupiter's going to spend most of his time retrograding. And this is where we're going to be searching for answers, looking for meaning, looking for purpose. And you might be evaluating your family life. Is there meaning here? Is there purpose here in my family? What's my relationship dynamic with my family, with the people in my family? And you'll be weighing up, what that's like for you. And making choices and decisions based on how you feel about your family and about the dynamic that you have, either with your parents or your immediate family, or your own children, your own domestic environment, looking for meaning. You might also be questioning where you live, why you're living where you are, and trying to sort of reach, inner solutions to, okay, well, why did I choose to live here? Is this really where I want to be? Does this really suit me now, where I'm at in my life, or do I need to change my domestic location, my house? So a lot of pondering when Jupiter is retrograde around fourth house issues and things. This is also our life foundation, our core emotional strength, and we might be reviewing who we are at an emotional level now. It's very psychological, very philosophical when Jupiter is retrograding through the fourth house. It's a house that's very deep, very hidden, and very introspective, and it's kind of doubly so when Jupiter goes retrograde there. This is also, and this is the main theme of Jupiter retrograde, is where we can restore things to life that we thought were dead, done, dying. So maybe you thought your house where you were living was like an old crap heap and you'd had a gut full of it. I'm over it. I just want to get out of here and find a new place. Well, you know what? Jupiter going retrograde in your fourth house might suddenly give you a more of a glass half full approach to your house, and you might see the potential in your house, and you might be like, you know what? I'm going to renovate it. I'm going to breathe new life back into this old crap heap. I'm going to, give it a fresh coat of paint and sew some new curtains. I'm going to plant a new garden. I'm going to extend this, roof line out here and make it look like this. Lo and behold, the old crap heap suddenly starts to sparkle like a new diamond. Where we can restore things to life is what happens when Jupiter retrogrades. And in this case, the fourth house of where you are living. And the same goes for family. If you thought your relationship with your family was crumbling, like that there was no hope there, like, you know, you might as well throw the relationship with the family out in the trash, lo and behold, Jupiter retrograde here can give you some sparks of life, can breathe new life and new fire back into, especially in the sign of Aries, new fire back into the relationship with your family, with your parents, with your children, with the, you know, the people who make up the closest tribal group of your life. For some people that is blood relatives, some people it's friends. So it depends. Who do you see as your closest family? Could well be your friends. I'm thinking, you know, like in Sex and the City, those girls were like family to one another in that show. So that's another example of family too. Maybe things needed breathing back into life for you, Cancer, with regard to family relationships or dynamics, and this is where things can be restored. Home also for Cancer people, Capricorn people, the fourth house is where we can be patriotic as well. And for a lot of Capricorn people, they might have thought, oh, my country's gone to the dogs, there's no hope for my country. Well, for some Capricorn people, they might start to see signs of life in their country that give them hope when Jupiter goes retrograde. Okay, there's this protest going on, or we're standing up for this issue against the tyranny that's unfolding. And you might start to get a bit of hope, feel those coal embers burning in your heart again, like there is hope out there to restore my country to health again. I'm not saying that Capricorn people's countries are going to all be restored to, you know, flourishing and life, but it's more like an essence of hope that is present when this is happening. I'm not here to, like I said in the intro, to do a mundane astrology reading by any stretch. But for Capricorn people, you know, that patriotism can be activated and you can start to feel more patriotically aligned with your country when Jupiter retrogrades in the fourth house. It could also relate to a business that you're running from home that gets restored to life, gets some new energy and vitality injected into it. It could be some sort of inherited family business like a farm, or, you know, a small business that father hands down to son or something like that, or mother hands down to daughter. There's some kind of a inheritance here, a genetic, you know, heritage, roots, lineages seen from the fourth house. So there could be a restoring to life of a family business, or a business that's running from home as well, when you thought that its days were done and dusted. So exciting times, and don't be afraid to take action towards that end if that is something you would like to see occur, because Aries is action. And just because Jupiter is retrograde in Aries doesn't mean we don't take action to restore something to life. We need to take action wherever Aries is. It's the go-getter energy. It's the startup. It's the I'm sprinting out of the gate, you know, kind of approach to life. So I just encourage you, take action if you want around these fourth house matters, if you want to restore things to life that you thought might be done and dusted. So thank you, my beautiful Capricorn friends. Now, Aquarius rising, sun or moon people, we are seeing the energy of Jupiter retrograding through your third house over the next 3 months. Jupiter will be retrograding through Pisces for November. So basically up till November, thereabouts, we are having the energy of Jupiter retrograde focused very, very much on the third house energies. What does this mean for us? Well, it means this is where we're going to be introspecting. We might be really doing some deep philosophical assessment of our friendships, or of a small business that we run, of some group work that we've been doing, maybe the way we've been teaching, and we're sort of looking within. Is this really effective? How I'm teaching people, how I'm sharing information with people, how I'm communicating to people. Is this being effective? We look within, we look for answers, we look for things to give sort of an understanding of meaning for us. So we might find that a lot of people with this placement over the next 3 months change their approach to their Instagram feed or their YouTube channel, or other social media platforms might go through some sort of alterations based on Jupiter retrograding here, because you'll be introspecting and reviewing, okay, third house things. So some big change to help things feel a bit more purposeful, feel a bit more meaningful for you. This is also a house where we can restore things to life, because when Jupiter goes retrograde, it's very much like Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. And I think I said in one of the other signs, It's possible that that story in the Bible is actually a metaphor for Jupiter retrograde period, being able to raise things back from the dead, restoring things to life where we thought they were dead and done. This is a house of craftsmanship. Maybe you had a skill in high school and in your 20s of playing the flute, or or some other musical instrument or something like that. And there was some sort of skill or craftsmanship that you were really, really good at, and it's gone by the wayside as life's gone on, and you're like, oh, I haven't played that flute in years. It's got cobwebs all over it, And then lo and behold, Jupiter goes retrograde in the house of skills and talents and abilities, and you dust off the flute. You have a bit of a play. You think, oh, not as rusty as I thought. Lo and behold, before too long, you're playing in some orchestra. Jupiter can restore to life that which you thought was dead regarding your skills and talents and abilities and craftsmanship. So don't be surprised if you happen to get out the sewing machine, Aquarius people, or dust off the old tools, or whatever it is that is your skill, talent, or craftsmanship. You may even be able to transform it into something that can create you money or make some sort of a side hustle for yourself. This is also buying, selling, trading as well that we see through the third house. So it could be that you're restoring to life your ability to buy, sell, trade. Maybe you had an Etsy site when Etsy first got going, and you had this cool site where you made some jewelry or whatever it was that you did. And lo and behold, this Etsy site hasn't had much action over the last few years. And lo and behold, here comes Jupiter, first time in 12 years in this house, doing his retrograde thing, and restores to life your buying and selling and trading on Etsy or eBay or whatever it happens to be, Facebook buy, swap and sell. And suddenly you're flat out with your buying, trading, selling, whatever it looks like for you. This is also a house of friendships. So it's more the friendship. Like the 11th house is our friends, but the third house is friends that we don't choose. So our neighbors who become our friends. Well, we didn't choose that we were going to live next door to those people, but lo and behold, they've become our friends. We have them over for coffee every Halloween or whatever, and we get together with our neighbors. They've become our friends. So that's the kind of friends, or friends we've made through school, or friends we've made in workshops that we've done where we didn't choose them, but they were there and we developed a rapport. So it might have been that one of those style of friendships has gone through some destructive phase, or fallen away, or you just haven't spoken to your neighbor in a couple of years because life just got too busy, whatever. Lo and behold, Jupiter retrograde in the house of neighbors, friends, those sorts of friends, relatives, people we do workshops with and stuff like that, is restored to life. And you start having your neighbor over again. They ask you in for a barbecue. You have them over for a glass of wine one Friday evening. Lo and behold, the friendship is reestablished, restored, and brought back to life. So it's quite a powerful thing to have Jupiter retrograding through a certain house in the horoscope. And this one is particularly lovely because it's social house. It's bringing social activity back into your life. It can also mean that you might become more busy, quite frankly, because if you haven't been busy, if you've been twiddling your thumbs, what's Jupiter going to do in the house of being busy? Restore that back to life too. You might get flat out socially, but maybe that needs to happen. And certainly over the last 2.5 to 3 years, our social lives have really suffered. And so Jupiter retrograding here for Aquarius people who are quite social creatures, you might find that suddenly it's new life's breathed back into your social actions, your social endeavors. Yay, sounds good to me. Enjoy it, play with it, have fun with it. Thank you, my Aquarius friends. Now Pisces, you've waited till last again, Pisces. So patient, so wonderful. I love you guys. Thank you for sticking with us, Pisces. Now, Pisces is having Jupiter retrograding. And remember, Jupiter is your ruler, Pisces, as well. I just want to stop this from going for a walk. There we are. Pisces, your ruler, is in the second house. Jupiter rules Pisces rising. Sun or moon as well can also consider this too. But Jupiter is retrograding for the first 3 months of his retrograde period in Aries, and then he'll spend 1 month in your first house, Pisces, and that will be felt by you as well, quite noticeably, because Jupiter is very powerful in its own sign in the first house. Of course, you will notice that, and you'll probably feel quite empowered by that. I'll just say a little piece on this actually for the sake of my Pisces friends. But when Jupiter transited last year, or earlier this year actually, through the sign of Pisces, there were a lot of other aspects being formed that were really quite detrimental to that Pisces energy, for Jupiter first house energy, I should say, expressing beautifully. That's not the case now. By the time Jupiter hits Pisces again, a lot of these discouraging aspects will be starting to dissipate and pull apart. And so you're likely to experience more of the blessing than, the blessing you probably didn't get enough of over the last year or so when Jupiter was in your first house. So something to look forward to for you guys, having Pisces in your first house towards the end of the year. But we're not talking about that just yet. We're talking about Jupiter retrograding in your second house, Pisces. What does that mean for you? Well, basically, you will be pondering deeply and getting very philosophical about your resources and finances. You might be reviewing budgets. It's not a bad thing to do, but you'll be looking for meaning in your budget. If I do declare this in my tax return and I don't declare that, what's the meaning, the purpose here that I can then accomplish with my life by, having more of a tax return or less of a tax return, or doing this banking and doing that banking. You can tell I'm not a very financial person just by my dialogue here right now. But you know what I mean. You're reviewing your budget, you're reviewing your taxes, you're reviewing anything financial while Jupiter retrogrades, and making choices that can perhaps ultimately bring more meaning to your life. Maybe you're considering getting a loan, and you this is a time when you're reviewing, okay, well, what's this loan going to mean for me philosophically? Am I going to be able to buy that? Everybody knows that I want a self-sufficient property and to go homesteading and grow my own veggies and have chooks and, live off grid and all that stuff. Is this going to be meaningful for me to take out this loan, to do this thing? And you kind of like pondering on these philosophical questions that have to do with your values, second house, and meaning, Jupiter, and substantial resources that support our body's journey through life, second house. So you are pondering on these things. You are deliberating. You're looking for meaning and purpose and answers regarding these things. But it's meaning and purpose that is significant to you personally. Not what does the world say is significant and meaningful materially. You're not interested in that when Jupiter is retrograde in the second house. We're looking at what is meaningful with my resources for me. What is valuable for me when Jupiter is retrograde, not based on the rules of the world or the so-called materialist agenda of the world, but what is meaningful and purposeful to Kesenya, to you watching this. So we are reassessing our values now. We are looking for answers based on our values right now, looking for changes in our life based on our values now. But what I really love about this Jupiter retrograde period is the ability for it to act like Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. It is about restoring something to life that we thought was dead, and in a very practical way. For Pisces people, maybe you thought your ability to make money was dead in the water. Maybe you thought your ability to be self-sufficient and support your body. Second house sits under the first house of the body, supporting the body, literally speaking as well. Your ability to support your body's journey and to help you flourish materially, it was dead and done. Like, I just can't make any more money than this. I feel like there's just been a brass cap on my ability to generate income, and I can never get above this certain level. Why do I even bother? Why do I even try? And you feel like your ability to generate your own life, to generate your own self-sufficiency is just dead. For the first time in 12 years, Jupiter is retrograding through your second house and gives you the ability to restore to life your financial situation, your financial flourishing, your ability to be financially blessed through this transit. I am so excited by this, and I'll tell you why, because I share a lot of my personal story with people here online, and I'm a Pisces rising. It's been 12 years since I was eligible for a loan, basically, because as a single mother in Australia, you might as well be marked with a, I've got the plague, bring out your dead kind of thing. The banks don't want to touch you when you're a single mother. You're doomed. And how can you possibly materially get ahead in life if you aren't able to take out a loan? So for 12 years, I've been in this situation. Now, for the first time ever in the last 12 years since Jupiter was last here, it looks possible to me that that might actually be the case. Circumstances have changed, things have shifted in my life where it is potentially looking possible, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Jupiter going retrograde, bringing that into being, bringing that possibility into manifestation. So that's what we're talking about here. Restoring to life something that you didn't think was possible with your material situation in life, with your ability to generate money or to have property or shelter, hot food, clothing, the resources that the body needs for our journey in life. Coupled with this as well, I will add, Pisces, is the restoration of our self-worth and our self-value. Where that has been shattered or undermined or brought down by certain circumstances or behaviors or attitudes out there in the world to us, Jupiter retrograde can now bring that back to life, where we stand up and say, I am worthy, I deserve this. This is something that I need to support my body's journey through life. Therefore, I deserve to have it. I am worthy of having it. So there is a restoration of our worthiness when Jupiter goes retrograde through the second house of self-worth and self-valuing. I'm excited for Pisces people because of this. It's going to really, put air in our balloons, so to speak, buoy us up, make us feel worthwhile and valuable in areas of life where we may have been crushed or struggled in the past. So what about your life? I've given you the story from my perspective, Pisces, but what about your life? Where have you felt less than, like you weren't worthy, like you couldn't generate what you needed to flourish and succeed materially in life? Well, this is where Jupiter might be full of surprises for you as he restores things to life and helps put your feet on solid ground again. Jupiter is in an auspicious sign in Aries, and I will also add for Pisces people that it does require us to take some sort of action, because Aries is an action-oriented planet. And just because Jupiter's retrograde doesn't mean that we don't step out and take a risk and take an opportunity that presents itself to us. We might have to go and approach the bank for that loan in order for something to happen. We can't just sit in front of Netflix and think that the bank's going to ring us, We have to take the action. We have to take the step, Aries, to take action with whatever it is that's going to increase our self-worth and self-value and increase our material stability in the world. Finally, Pisces, this is also the house of self-sufficiency and security and our sense of, having stability in life. And if we have felt unstable, particularly over the last 2.5 to 3 years, if we felt unstable, like the rug could be pulled out from under us at any minute, Jupiter has the ability, when he is retrograding through this house, to restore to life our sense of stability, security, and safety in the world where we felt before like it was shattered. And I know a lot of us need to feel that coming into the latter part of 2022. So I hope this period is a blessing for you. Thank you, my beautiful friends, for journeying with me around the zodiac once again. It is always a delight to come to you with the Astro Weather Report every week, and I'll have another Astro Weather Report for you next week. Till then, be blessed and enjoy Jupiter retrograde.